Yippee-ki-yay movie lovers, it's Jan here. In this video I want to talk about A Quiet Place and some intriguing deleted scenes and rejected concepts, plus how the creature design changed over the course of production. If you're finding me for the first time, I do lots of movie deleted scenes and breakdowns, so do subscribe if you enjoy this. Obviously, spoilers ahead for the movie, so take care if you haven't seen it yet. The movie's producers have revealed the original script included flashbacks. In fact, initially the loss of the family's youngest son was going to be handled in a flashback. However, when director and star John Krasinski did his rewrite of Brian Wood's and Scott Beck's script, he wanted to make that shocking moment feel more urgent, so he cut the flashback, brought the scene into the present, and moved it right up to the front of the movie. Losing that flashback and shifting the scene to the start of the film was a great call by Krasinski, as it made the terrifying reality of the family situation totally clear from the get-go. Basically, the unthinkable becomes all too imaginable for both the family and the audience. Other flashbacks which featured the characters talking were also given the chop by Krasinski. Though the producers weren't specific in their Hollywood Reporter interview, I think the deleted dialogue may well have filled in some of the Abbott's backstory as well as background about the invasion of the creatures. Speaking of backstory, in the trailers there was a scene which was deleted from the film, which shows Emily Blunt's character Evelyn watching what looks like news footage on various monitors, and there are also voiceovers from different news reports.
They're fighting a massive invasion around the world. Total devastation.
This looks like it was probably part of some early exposition about the alien invasion, which ended up being cut from the movie. What's also interesting in this deleted scene is that this version of the father's whiteboard wasn't actually in the film. According to this board, there were 3 creatures to start and that increased to 5. But in the final film, the whiteboard clearly shows that there are only 3 confirmed creatures in the area. And at the end of the movie, Evelyn kills one of those and we see 2 others on the monitors as they approach the house. I imagine the filmmakers reduced the number of monsters in the area as they wanted to leave the ending more realistically hopeful for the family, and if they'd had 4 creatures left to kill at once, their odds would have been significantly slimmer. While including more background about the Abbotts and the invasion in the film could have been interesting, personally I liked the way we were dropped into the family's daily life in the middle of this apocalyptic situation without getting oodles of expositionary dialogue about the characters or creatures' backgrounds. While you could never accuse John Krasinski's film of being overly wordy, the draft screenplay for A Quiet Place only had 3 words of dialogue in it. In that early script, the characters communicated via gestures and hand motions, but it wasn't until Krasinski came on board to direct, star and rewrite that the idea of using American Sign Language was included in the film, along with the cochlear implant being the key to the creature's defeat. These changes made a huge impact on the final movie, especially since Krasinski pushed to cast deaf actress Millicent Simmonds as his on-screen teen daughter Regan. Simmonds injected her real-life experience of deafness into the film, teaching the cast sign language on set and advising Krasinski on several key moments for their characters. For instance, she told Metro that the scene where Krasinski's character Lee argues with Regan after he stops her going into the basement was initially going to play out rather differently, with Regan backing down to her father's authority. However, during filming, Simmonds suggested her character would actually be rebellious in that moment, and Krasinski embraced that idea wholeheartedly. Also, originally, before Lee's sacrifice at the end, he was only going to sign "I love you" to his children. However, Simmonds proposed a subtle but very effective change, which was for Lee to also sign "I have always loved you." As Regan's brother told his father earlier in the film, Regan felt her dad blamed her for the death of her little brother and no longer loved her, though that wasn't the case. So, thanks to the additional signing, Lee's final moments see him act on his son's earlier suggestion to tell Regan what he feels for her, and that really heightened the emotional impact of Lee's fate, while mending his strained relationship with his daughter. All of which was a great addition to the final film. The original design for the creatures was very different to what we see in the film. According to visual effects supervisor Scott Farrar, initially the monsters looked much less imposing and had rhinoceros-style horns on their faces. They were actually well into post-production when Farrar and John Krasinski realised that the creatures needed a complete redesign as they just weren't frightening enough. In fact, when they placed them in the movie, they looked a little silly. Farrar suggested taking the VFX in a totally different direction, going for something that looked, as he told Vanity Fair, much more gross, really medical and raw. Of course, silence and sound were always at the heart of the film, so getting the right look for the creature's ears was crucial, and that was also altered a number of times during production, with the monster's hearing canals being moved around the body from the chest to the head, elsewhere and back again. For the final design of the aliens though, the filmmakers looked to real life for inspiration, including a sea creature with very poor eyesight called the Nautilus, bats, snakes, prehistoric fish and even bog bodies, which are human corpses mummified in peat. Reading through your comments on my Ending and Creatures Explained video, I noticed some of you had issues with details in the movie that you felt created plot holes, one of which was to do with the family's electricity supply. Now it's interesting you brought that up, because in an interview with Slash Film, screenwriters Scott Beck and Brian Woods have said that as they were writing, they did think through the logic of many different aspects of the film's premise and have answers to a good number of those questions. Their draft script explained lots of those details, such as how the Abbotts got their electricity through generators placed underground, so they didn't make any noise above ground. I think such details were dropped from the final film as director and co-writer John Krasinski felt they weren't crucial to the overall movie and wanted to concentrate on creating interesting character moments and interactions while ratcheting up the tension throughout and still keep the runtime to a tight 90 minutes. I'm sure you can think of more than a few movies you've seen yourself with scenes that are bogged down in exposition and over-explaining themselves, but co-writer Brian Woods said that they really wanted to slowly paint in the world these characters are living in, by showing us a newspaper headline here and there, or an awkward conversation at the family dinner table. As Woods has also said, I think you can make assumptions and give the finished film the benefit of the doubt. Before the movie was released, there was a theory doing the rounds online for a while that A Quiet Place was going to be part of the Cloverfield universe. And when the writers Beck and Woods pitched the movie to the studio, they did initially fear that Paramount, which also distributes the Cloverfield movies, might try and make the film fit into that franchise. I can see the mysterious alien monsters in the movie could potentially have been incorporated into the Cloverfield mythology. However, I'm glad Paramount shared the writers' view that A Quiet Place was strong enough to stand on its own 2 feet. And if there are Quiet Place sequels or anthology films, the producers don't intend for there to be any crossover with Cloverfield in the future either. Speaking to Cinema Blend, Andrew Form and Brad Fuller said, "That's not our world, that's JJ's world, and he's carefully curating that. I think John Krasinski has created this amazing world with these characters, and I think A Quiet Place definitely lives on its own." Although the movie does of course lean into horror tropes, I think it managed to create something that felt fresh and was riveting to watch. The writers have already said they already have a number of ideas and set pieces that they didn't end up using in the film, so it'd be interesting to see what they come up with for a follow-up. Now, what do you think about the changes and cutscenes in A Quiet Place? What were your favourite moments in the movie, and what would you like to see happen in a sequel? Let me know below, and you can also tweet me at Jan_Gilbert or at FlickCity. If you enjoyed this, leave a thumbs up and tap the screen here for more amazing movie deleted scenes and breakdowns. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Yippee-ki-yay, movie lovers!